only 1 out of 10 companies gets funded generally, and 1 out of 10 of those is a woman generally. So being a woman, how has that affected you, in terms of when you're presenting, and you've got Tom there also, sometimes you don't. Do you think that there's been any different impact because you're female, or?
It's really interesting because 2 years ago, if we'd have been having this conversation, what I would have told you is I get really frustrated when people ask me, what's it like to be a woman in business? And what's it like to be a woman entrepreneur? Because my answer to that is always, well, I don't know, because I've only ever been a woman in business. I've never been a man, so I can't possibly tell you what it's like to be a woman. It used to really annoy me because I felt like people were kind of completely missing the point, even though I understood that there was some kind of conversation to be had there because of the statistics that you just quoted, right? And I think a couple of things in the last 2 years, the whole Me Too movement has really, and also the Me Too movement and the stuff in the UK around the gender pay gap,
right, and US also,
and has really come to the forefront and has really changed some of that conversation. So I find now that I'm able to have much more meaningful conversations about this. Also, in the past 2 years, as you know, I've had a baby.
Yes.
So my position as a woman, I guess, has really kind of impacted on me as a human being, because I now have a baby to look after as well as the baby that is my business.
Right.
So I do, all of those things are really at the forefront of my head at the moment. On the one hand, thinking about making yourself seen and capturing people's attention, I think it's always been a great thing for the business and for me that we can go along to these pitching events and I will often be the only woman pitching. Right. And that's a good thing, because they're more likely to remember me than they are the 9 other white men who are standing up there and pitching their app.
Right. I know. I know. So that's the positive.
So that's the positive. The challenging part of it,
not as positive.
Not as positive. The challenging part is, for the fundraise that we're doing at the moment, we have reached out to almost 200 investors or funds, or we've done a huge amount of groundwork. Of those people we've reached out to, we've maybe had, 50 contact points, I would say, like where we've got beyond an email, we've had a call or a meeting, what have you. And I can count on one hand the number of calls and meetings that I've had with women, let alone women of colour or any other kind of diversity metric.
Right.
And after a certain point, it's hard not to be constantly reminded when you go into a room that you're different from the people that you're sat in a room with.
Right.
And, people buy people. That's how
right.
people...
There's a mirror thing.
There's a mirror thing.
Yes,
so people buy people who are like them.
That's the point of the mirror.
Because they can relate to them.
Right.
And so there comes a point where you start to question, well, I'm a woman... I'm a young woman, youngish still,
Still young.
with a baby, running my own business that's an impact business, is not purely commercially driven. Like, all of these things that make up who I am and who the business is, I rarely get to have a mirror. I rarely get that mirrored back in an investor.
Right.
And I think that lack of diversity in the investment community can only contribute to the lack of diversity in the types of people who are successfully raising money and scaling their businesses.
That's right. There's a direct correlation.
There's got to be a direct correlation.
There is a direct correlation. And I've told you about these 2,224 companies.
How many of them were led by women?
So way less than 10%. Way less than 10%.